All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Just to take us through to lunch now, we're going to hear from Andy Graves. He's been with Lion New Zealand since 2015. He's Lion's safety and well-being leader. More and more attention these days is being paid to this area. Obviously, a productive and relaxed employee is every manager's dream. Well-being in the workplace increases productivity and motivation. It brings teams together, it builds morale, it decreases work-related stress. There are so many things out there to give people advice when they are at the stage where they are really acute and feeling the pressure. But it's about identifying those people before they get to that point and what tools and skills can be given beforehand. Safety and well-being, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Andy Graves.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me? I've got one of these on because I do tend to wander a little bit, so apologies for that. Yeah, I'm the safety and well-being leader for Lion, and I've been, like I say, with Lion now for 5 years. Previous to that, I spent 25 years working in the steel industry in the UK. So I've been around safety a long time, I've been around health and safety a long time, but really the safety and well-being part, really been involved in that since I started at Lion, really. And the reason we got into safety and well-being at Lion was the fact that several years ago, just when I started, we had a person who committed suicide at one of our sites. And it really rocked the site, and the impact was felt across through a lot of people. And the other thing was that I have a team of, sorry, I'm just going to come forward. I have a team of 6 people that work for me, and we work across the whole of New Zealand. And it seemed every time I went with them, I meet with them once a week, and we go through what's happening and who's doing what and why they're doing it. And it seemed to me that every week we were having more and more conversations around the well-being of people. And my team were involved in those conversations, and we wanted to do something differently. We wanted to be more proactive. We know there are lots and lots of resources out there for people when they're at an acute stage, when they need immediate help. What we wanted was to actually give them tools to stop them getting to that point, to help them identify when they were getting to that point, and to help them identify the resources that were available, either through hospitals or doctors or through Lion, that could actually help them overcome that issue. So, we wanted to do it in a structured way. As you can imagine, any large organization, we want to do things in a way that is sustainable and is going to keep things rolling forward. So we wanted to develop a well-being, what we call our well-being triangle, and we identified the fact that there are 3 areas, or we believe there are 3 areas that really impact a person's well-being. And that's the work, the social, and the personal. And as a safety and well-being leader, we decided that actually we really want to focus on that personal part. And to focus on that, we focused on the physical side of safety and the mental and emotional well-being side of safety. The physical side is what we do every day. It's all those, we've just heard lots of conversations around GSAs and permits and process and keeping people safe from those nips and trips and those things that are going to hurt people. The mental and well-being part was slightly different. We had to think of a different way of approaching it. So we launched a brand around our personal and our physical and our mental and emotional well-being. And we called it Everyone Safe Every Day. And we had the underrider under that saying, I care, I own, I lead. And we had that because we want people to really show that they care about safety, that they own safety and that they lead safety, but also that they care about mental and emotional well-being of people, that they own their own mental and emotional well-being, and that they lead mental and emotional well-being by the strategies they put in place to keep themselves well. So we launched that brand in 2016, and in 2017, we launched our mental and emotional well-being, Best Me, we call it. Now, Best Me is around having the best mental and emotional well-being you possibly can. And as an aside to that, we put a a whole ream of resources on a SharePoint that we have at work, where people can access. It's a business-wide intranet system. And we put resources on there around EAP, and we put resources around, Mental Health Foundation, and other places where people could go and get help. We put resources on there on resilience. And the thing with resilience is everybody thinks that resilience is just keep going, do the best you can, just keep going. And it's really not. It's really about understanding when enough is enough, and when you need help, and when you need to call in extra resources to get you through that point. The trouble with everybody keep going is that we tend to put more and more onto those people. Oh, we'll give it to Bill. He always does a good job. He always keeps it going. We'll give it to him. And suddenly Bill gets inundated with work. And we need to identify when we can stop that. So we also did a lot of work around mindfulness. And I was born and bred in the north of England, and for somebody to sit, if they'd told me 10 years ago to sit in a room with my headset on and listen to somebody take me through what is basically a meditation session, I'd have probably laughed them out of the room. But 3 times a week now, I have it in my diary where I have 10 minutes for mindfulness, where I can just sit down and get 10 minutes to myself and recharge my batteries. So to me, it's been an absolute lifesaver. And I don't know if anybody's ever heard of mindfulness or if you've ever practiced it, but I would absolutely recommend it. It's one thing we talk about a lot in Lion. I've got a couple of videos to show you. I'll speak after it's played.
Last year we did Everyone Safe Every Day. That had that big impact. Now when we walk around sites, the first conversations we're having is about safety. But that's exactly what we wanted, and we've noticed that the rates have come down a lot. So we're at about 14 recordable incidents per million hour work. We were 3 or 4 years ago over 20. We want to get down to 5 and then to 0. I think safety is more than just the physical safety. So what we're talking about this year is Best Me. And what that is really trying to say you need to be in the +10 space. You need to wake up with that feeling that I talked about of being really positive in the morning. Recognising the fact that we all dip up and down, but Best Me is really helping us to be Best Me. It's the start of creating an environment where it's okay to have those conversations. So when you ask someone, are you okay? What I want people to recognise as those words is, we're not asking like, are you okay? Did you have a nice surf yesterday? Are you okay? Was it no weekend? I'm asking you, are you okay? Is everything really okay with you? And I'm asking you about your feelings and emotions and where you are at. Are you feeling plus or minus? So staying in that moment of listening is a mental challenge for the listener. So listening properly is actually hard work. You really have to give 100% of your attention, and your mind won't want you to do it. It will start to say, oh yeah, and you haven't bought the butter. When you get it right, you'll really notice the difference, that someone's thinking, that person's really, really paying attention to me. So I think it's an important conversation for all of us, because if we can be more often at the +10 side, feeling really positive, not just for Lion, but for the whole of their lives, it makes me feel that we're doing the right thing for people. Living up to our core purpose of helping people to live well, make it a nicer place to be, attract more talented people, they'll stay longer, we'll be more productive, we'll have more fun, we'll get better results. Our consumers and customers will notice that, they'll be more engaged with us. So it's a real positive circle. We want to do it because we believe in people.
So that was Stuart Irvine. Stuart Irvine's our CEO. And he played a key part in really wanting to bring this Best Me to life. And I remember meeting with Stuart. We launched Everyone Safe Every Day in May 2016. We wanted to launch Best Me in May 2017. And we launched Everyone Safe Every Day and Best Me by stopping every site in Lion across the world. So every site stopped at 11 o'clock on Friday morning. And every site got the same message in the same way. And when it came to around about sort of March time, I remember sitting with Stuart and saying, actually, I don't think we're ready. I don't think we have enough information to give to people to make it worthwhile. And he said, well, how much do we need to give them? What do you want to give them? I said, well, I want to give them this, and I want to give them this, and I want to give them this. And what have we got for them? Well, I've got this, and I've got this, and I've got this, but I haven't got this or this. And he said, well, when is it ever going to be enough? When are you ever going to get to a point where you're really satisfied with what you're going to give them and that you're really happy? Isn't it best to make progress rather than look for perfection? And he said, I don't really care what you've got. I think it's better to have something than nothing. And that was the philosophy we launched on. That we're not saying that we've cracked it, we're not saying that we've got everything, but we have a foundation to build from. So we launched Best Me. We've done a lot of work since then, because well-being, mental and emotional well-being, is more than just who you are and how you feel. There's so much more that plays a part. There's so much more that plays a part in that sort of whole picture of mental well-being. But this is the SharePoint that we launched around Best Me, and it was just an area for people to go, people to get resources.
Hi, it's Rory Glass here. I wanted to let you know that next week is Mental Health Awareness Week in New Zealand, a time for all of us to reflect on our own mental well-being and of those around us. It's okay to say that I'm not at my best today, no matter what the reason. It could be you are suffering with your own mental well-being or just finding things a little tough at the moment. It's okay to ask for help. We don't need to go through the tough times alone. If you are finding things a little hard going, take the opportunity to give EAP a call on 0800 327 699. Speak to your GP or talk to your friends and family. They are all there to help. If you're feeling good, then think about those around you who may or may not be feeling the same as you. Take the opportunity to take them for a coffee and ask them, are you okay? And be prepared to listen without judgment. Together, we can take any stigma away from mental well-being. Let's do our best to keep everyone safe every day. Cheers.
Sorry about that. Normally I have to click twice for it to come on, but anyway. So that was Rory. Rory Glass is our MD for New Zealand. And the reason we sent that out was we stopped for Mental Health Week. I think it may have been last year. And it's really easy for an MD to send an email out. And people generally read it. If they get an email from your MD, you tend to open it and have a read of it. But we really wanted to make it personal. We wanted to make it that Rory was actually asking you to go and have a coffee with a mate and ask a mate if they're okay. And to help make that easier, we went around all of our local cafes, around all of our sites, and we just said to them, look, if anybody comes in from Lion and they buy a coffee and they've got a mate with them, we'll buy the mate's coffee. I'll come and see you at the end of the week, and however many coffees you tell me you've given away, I'll pay for it. And it cost us a few $100s. But it also meant that people were stepping away from work, people were having conversations with their mates, and people were asking, are you really okay, and how can I help? This year, the end of last year, we launched an initiative with Lifeline. So we talked about Best Me, and we've talked about that mental and emotional well-being, but we know there's a huge issue with suicide in New Zealand. And I swear to God, I knew nothing. I knew it was an issue. I didn't know until we launched this project how significant an impact it would have on the team at Lion. So the idea of the project was to really get people to be able to speak about suicide and to get people to ask that question. Are you thinking of committing suicide? It's really, really hard to do. And you need to know that it's okay to ask that question. So we took a lot of people. We didn't take everybody through. We'll carry the project on for next year. We took a whole lot of people through a 2-hour training session with Lifeline that we developed with Lifeline. Lifeline wanted to implement this, wanted a pilot company to work with, and they chose Lion because of the work we were already doing on mental health. We took a lot of leaders through, we took some team members through, and the impact has been tremendous, absolutely tremendous. I personally had a conversation with a young lady who had lost her partner in an accident, and she was talking around the fact that she was thinking of hurting herself. So her leader called me and said, would you come and have a chat with her, Andy? I'm just really concerned that that she's going to hurt herself. So I went down to see her, and I had a chat with her, and she assured me it was just comments. She didn't mean anything by it. She was fine, and everything was good. And then the very next day, I had another phone call from her leader again saying, Andy, I'm really concerned. She's just talking so much about hurting herself. So I went to see her again, and again, she assured me that everything was good and there was no problems and no issue. But I didn't really feel comfortable accepting that. So I said, look, I'm not going to walk away this time. I'm not going to walk away until we've got you to see somebody, whether that be an EAP person or whether that be a doctor or the hospital or whoever it may be. I'm really not happy to leave until I've got you to that situation. And it must have taken me 2 or 3 hours of sitting and having conversations and coffees and God knows what else to try and convince her that she should do this. She didn't need it. She just felt she could cope with the loss, she could cope with the grief, and she would work her way through it. Eventually, she said, look, I think probably just to shut me up, she said, I'll go and see my GP. So we arranged an appointment for her that afternoon, and we arranged a taxi to take her there, and she went and started that progress, started that conversation with a GP. And then I'd see her in the office, and probably once a week, she'd be making a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and I'd walk over and I'd say, how are you doing? How are you going on? Is everything all right? And it was a really simple conversation. It took 2 minutes of my life. And she'd tell me all about the things she was doing, the fact that she got into sport again, and the fact that she was seeing a future, and all of these fantastic things. And in the end, 18 months later, a year later, whatever, she had to leave the business for whatever reason. And she sent me an email. And I have this email to this day. And it just said something really simple. Like, it was probably 2 lines. And it said something along the lines of, hi, Andy. I absolutely know I wasn't the best person to talk to. I absolutely know that I lied to you. But I also know that you saved me. And to me, that made the whole project worthwhile. Because I felt I personally impacted somebody's life in a really positive way. And then I got some of these comments from other people. So I got a fellow at the Pride who came to see me and said, look, you know, I'm a mentor. I work with local youth, and I have taken this message across to that local youth because I know they're a big part of the people that go through this process. And he said, I think it's such an important message that we get out there that I wanted to share it. I got another one from a guy that came to see me only a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I've had a close family member who I've been concerned about for such a long time, but I've never really had the nerve to say anything to him. And in the past week, I think I've asked him 2 or 3 times if he's thinking of committing suicide. And now we're able to talk about it, and we're able to actually do something about it. And there's been other calls, other comments like that. And so when people say to me, do you think it's a success? Do you think you're making a difference? I think from a personal perspective, I think we're making a huge difference. I think if we've impacted one person, then and stopped them from committing suicide, I think we've made a massive difference. I think the whole thing's been worth it. And I know through conversations that we're impacting more people than that. Oh, I can pause it. So, as part of this process, the issue with depression and suicide and all of those horrible words that we use is that a lot of people, they see an individual suffering depression or anxiety or whatever it may be as somebody who sits in the corner sobbing, who can't get out of bed, who is not a fully functioning member of society. And through the work we've done over the past 18 months, it's just so different. That's so different to what reality is. And we have a young girl working at Lion called Mary Therese. And she was telling me that she suffers with depression, and has suffered with depression for a long time. Now, you'll see for yourself in a few seconds that Mary Therese, she's a young Irish girl. She's bubbly, she's blonde, she's lovely, she's full of energy. And she's the last person you would ever imagine as suffering with depression. And I said to her, would you mind if we videoed you and just talk to you and just have a conversation? Because it'd be really good to understand what you go through, how you feel, what you expect other people to do when you're feeling that way, and what you want other people to do or say to you. So I haven't got the full video here, but I have got a 2-minute snippet just to give you an idea of the type of person that's impacted by depression and the value I believe that doing this type of thing and sharing these types of stories really plays in bringing this forward.
Well, as you know, we introduced Best Me, our mental and emotional wellbeing program, last year. And as part of that, we've gone out around our business and asked a number of people if they're willing to share their stories of mental and emotional health. And today we've got Mary, who's really bravely going to share her story around depression with us. Can you tell me about a time in your life when things were not feeling as good as they should have been for you?
I suppose there's two most significant times in my life where I would have, realized that I was struggling beyond day to day and beyond the ability to cope, I suppose, properly. So the very first time that I identified I was having a period of depression was in my late 20s. And it was the very first time in my life that I lost a friend. A friend of mine died of cancer. I kind of became very, very sad, very angry as well. Really, really important, and it's a really important realization for me is that everybody's got their thing. Everyone's got their struggle, and everyone's got things going on in their lives, and just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And I think by understanding your own story, you become more open and more empathetic to other people and realizing that things are not always the way that it seems. So probably the two.
So like I say, it was just a snippet just to give you an idea. There's a whole 45 minutes of that, and we've shared it so much across Lion because I think it's important for people to realize that, don't judge a book by its cover. People go through and are going through so many struggles that you would never, ever imagine, that you would never know, and you probably may never know for the whole of the time you work with them. But remember that people are going through those issues and struggles. Some of the other things that we've talked around our sort of mental and emotional wellbeing journey, obviously Best Me, we have at every safety meeting and every P&C meeting and every other meeting I go to, we have a wellbeing score. So if I go into, I don't know if anybody uses MEX or lean manufacturing, but we have T1, T2, and T3 meetings. And at those, so you've got your sort of shop floor level, you've got your team leader level, and you've got your site leader level. And at each of those meetings, they have people talking about their personal well-being. How are you feeling today? How are you feeling this week? Is it a smiley face? Is it a sad face? What help do you need? The fact around mental and emotional well-being is something we talk about. It's not something that we hide under the cover and we say, that's nothing to do with us. We try and sort of take that stigma away from people talking around mental and emotional well-being. We had the likes of John Kerwin came in and talked about his troubles with mental and emotional well-being, he talks a lot around it being an illness and not a weakness. And I think that's one of the key messages that we took out of it, was that it is an illness. This isn't the fact that you're weak. It isn't the fact that you can't do something. It's the fact that you've got an issue and we need to deal with it. You know, you'll have heard so many people say that, you know, if a person comes to work with a pot on the leg or a bandage on the hand or whatever, you have a lot of empathy, you have a lot of sympathy for them. But people with mental and emotional well-being issues, they don't have the opportunity to put a bandage on. They don't have an opportunity to put a plaster on, and you may never know. But you've got a better chance of knowing if you can actually ask them the right question and get them to share. We also went when I was talking about that mental and emotional well-being, it's a full cycle and circle of things that you can do. So the rainbow tick was really important to me. You know, I've been married for 35 years and have a great relationship. It's fantastic. It's awesome. But I can show that in front of anybody. I can hold my wife's hand. I can give her a cuddle. I can give her a kiss. I can do whatever. What I found out when we started going down this rainbow tick process was that actually there are people out there that can't do that can't hold their partner's hand in public, that can't give their partner a kiss in public, that can't give their partner a cuddle in public. We had a story of a young guy who started work, and he was a gay man, and he started work, didn't tell any of his colleagues he was gay, lived with his partner, and so he had to live two lives. He had to be the person he was at home and the person he was at work. And the person he was at home was his true self. The person he was at work was what he thought his work colleagues wanted. So when they talked about what did you do at the weekend, he wouldn't say about going out with his boyfriend. He wouldn't say about the bars they went to because they may pick them up as being gay bars. He wouldn't say lots of things because it may mean that people would find out he was gay. And then they wouldn't respect him and they wouldn't treat him the same. And then his partner got really ill. In fact, he got married. And then his partner got really ill. And again, nobody knew this. And he had to have time off work. And he went to see his boss, and he said to his boss, look, a few things I need to tell you. I am gay, I'm married, and my partner's really ill. And his boss was devastated at the fact that he hadn't said anything. He said, I've got absolutely no issue with you being gay. God, I just wish you'd have told me. You didn't have to lead two separate lives. So you imagine trying to get up every day and remember which hat you've got on. Have you got your true self hat on, where you can actually speak and be who you are? Or have you got your hat on that you want everybody else to see? And that impacts your mental and emotional well-being. We talk about ways to take a break. You'll see these across all of the sites in Lion. Different ways to take a break, just different ways just to take 5 minutes and get your thoughts back to yourself. We have flexibility. Just trying to keep an eye on the time. We have flexibility at Lion. So it's not all the way through the organization because it's really hard to take somebody off a bottling machine or a filling machine and say, oh, you can work from home today. You just can't do it. But we do offer things like job share and part-time work and other things. But for a lot of people in the organization, you don't have to be based in the office. You don't have to be based at that particular site. You don't have to be in that particular country. You know, we have people who work for Lion New Zealand who live in Australia. I have one of my team members who looks after the sales department in Auckland. Is based in Dunedin. You don't have to be next to the person you're working with. You know, it's okay to work from home. It's okay to work different hours. You know, if you've got children and you need to be taking them to school, it's okay to come in later. If you've got children you need to pick them up from school, it's okay to come in earlier. Work your way around what works best for you. This is Chris. Chris is our finance director. This is a poster that we've got again at our sites, and there's just one of many. But I've brought this one because it isn't often you hear about the finance director who's really pushing for people to think about their mental and emotional well-being. And Chris talks about the fact that his partner, his wife, suffers with depression. And flex means so much to him because it allows him the flexibility to be with her, to stay with her, or to work from home, or to do whatever he needs to do. And the reason that we get all these posters and all these people talking about flexibility is because we want it to be the norm. So if somebody comes to me from my team and says, Andy, I would like to work flexibly via A, B, or C, my immediate response will be yes, absolutely. How do we make it work? And every leader in Lion should have that same response. Yes, how do we make it work? So we do have a few next steps. We've got these, what we're calling Best Me Buddies. And they're going to be people, and we're actually going through this process right now, and we've looked for people that are those natural-born leaders in the organization. You know yourself, there are people on the shop floor that people just turn to because they know they can get good advice. They know they can hold a confidence. They know that they're going to get treated with respect. And they're the people we want to come forward and actually give them and upskill them with regards to, what is mental and emotional well-being? What is family and domestic violence? How can I help with family and domestic violence? How can I help with mental and emotional well-being? So I'm not looking to make counselors. I'm just looking to make people that can offer the next step. And that next step could be as simple as, Jim goes to see Bill because Bill's a trusted member of that team. Now, if Bill can say, well, actually, you probably just need to go and speak to Andy because he can tell you exactly what you need to do. Or have you thought about speaking to EAP? Have you thought about speaking to whoever? He's not there to give advice as to what you should do and this is the steps you should take and you need to get a lawyer and do this. He's there to say there are people that can offer that sort of advice. Because they're more likely to accept that advice off him than just see my face on a poster and say, come and speak to me if you've got mental and well-being issues, or come and speak to me if you've got family and domestic violence issues. Because who am I? I'm somebody out of Freeman's Bay who gets onto site maybe once or twice a week if I'm lucky. So we're trying to get that sorted. We're doing a lot of work around psychological safety. And psychological safety is those teams that people can just put their hand up and say, have we thought about doing this? Have we thought about doing that? And know they're not going to get ridiculed, and know that they're not going to get put down or laughed at. And every idea is accepted, and every idea is accepted on its merit. And it may not be the best idea in the world, and that's fine. But it may be an idea that is so wacky and so out there that actually, shit, we never thought of this before. Let's have a go. Let's think about it. So we talk about the psychological safety where people feel trusted, people feel safe, and people open up. And the reason we do that is not only because it impacts your mental and emotional well-being, but it brings so much creativity into that team environment. So that's our next two big events or issues that we're working through. And that's just one of my favorite quotes. So success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. And that's me. So that's our journey. We're not saying we are experts by any stretch of the imagination. We're doing what we're doing because we think it's right, we think it feels good, and we think we're seeing results. Thank you.
How long are you here for, Andy?
Another hour or so.
All right, Andy, we've got time for maybe a couple of quick questions. The first one, in what measurable ways have these initiatives to improve worker well-being affected productivity?
I probably think we're too early doors to say how it's affected productivity. I mean, we have well-being scores, we have culture scores, so we know that we're making improvements. I think we're up in the 91st percentile for culture. But I think Lion's always been pretty good when it comes to culture. We know that, I think you can walk around the site and you can feel that people care about you. You can feel that people want to do the right thing. So when I look at this from a mental well-being perspective, if people feel trusted, people feel that they're really cared about, our safety reporting has increased tremendously because people don't feel that people are going to get disciplined or shouted at or whatever it may be for actually talking about safety. So I couldn't tell you from productivity, but I think just from a feel-good factor, I think it's tremendous.
This is a really interesting question. This is a great concept worth sharing. So quite often people ask, are you okay? Because they don't know what to say or do after they asked the question. So what do you suggest here?
And again, one of the biggest issues I think we face is that we assume we don't know anything. We don't, how can we make assumptions about people with mental well-being that they're going to hurt somebody else or going to injure somebody or whatever it may be. And I think you've just got to be a human being. And if you're going to say to somebody, are you okay, then be prepared for them to say no. And be prepared to say, well, what sort of advice can we get you? Now, you may not know what that advice is, but maybe you could sit down with them and you could say, actually, let's have a look. Let's Google. Let's find out what we can do and how we can do it. We're fortunate enough we've gone through some training for some of our people, and quite a lot of people, around what those additional resources are and where to get them. But there's nothing to stop you just having that human-to-human conversation and saying, are you okay? And if you're not, actually, what can we do about it? Exactly the same as you would if it was your daughter or your son or your brother. Just think about what you would, you don't have to be a counsellor. You don't have to have every answer in the world. But just the fact they've opened up to you and said, no, I'm not, is a massive step forward.
What if you're asking somebody, are you okay? You ask me, am I okay? And my response to you is, well, actually, Andy, I don't know you well enough to confide in you.
Well, that's what they can say, isn't it? I'm not asking for everybody to come up to me and say, and give me all their troubles and woes. What I'm saying is, if you want to share, I'm willing to listen. And if you want to share, I'm willing to keep it to myself. I don't go around blabbing and telling people what people are saying to me. And I'm very clear to all the people we talk to, you've got to have a confidence. This isn't about sharing war stories with people. So if they want to share, I'll be there. If they don't want to share, that's fine. I'm not going to force them. I'm not going to make somebody do something they don't want to do. But I hope that they come to a point where they feel that they have enough trust that if they don't want to share with me, maybe they'll share with somebody else.
Well, Andy, when I think of what the workplace was like when I first ventured into it, when I came to Mystery Creek in the late 1970s, asking for help was seen as a weakness, certainly.
Absolutely.
A concession that you actually weren't up to the job.
Yep.
So it is a wonderful thing that we're in a different world now in the way in which people treat each other. We do have a memento for you to take away.
Thank you.
As an appreciation of what you have brought to the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Graves.